Hey, 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 happy Wednesday. Come on in, pull up a chair. The Gaming Gang Dispatch is in the air. Howdy, 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 gang. Welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host here at the Gaming Gang Dispatch, brought to you by thegaminggang.com, of which I happen to be the founder and editor-in-chief. Tonight is Wednesday, October 27th, 2021. This is live stream 709. If this is your first time joining me, let me point out, it's very, very casual. Just hang out, talk about the latest in tabletop gaming news, and normally take a first look at a tabletop game. This week's been a little bit different. This week I have been reviewing Call of Cthulhu releases from Chaosium Inc. And tonight I am going to share my thoughts about Berlin, the Wicked City from Chaosium Inc. And of course, this is for Call of Cthulhu. And you will notice this is the leatherette edition of the book. We will talk about that in just a little bit. So once again, if you're just joining me for the first time, maybe you're like, wow, I really want to check out Berlin, the Wicked City. Let me point out that the first half of the show is devoted to the latest tabletop gaming news. And then after that is when we will jump into the book review. So keep that in mind, especially if you're watching live. It's about 30 minutes of news, and then we dive on in. If you're watching after the fact, in fact, within about 30 minutes of the stream ending, I will have timestamps on the video. So if you don't want to check out the tabletop gaming news, which, to be honest, you really should. There's a lot of cool stuff going on. But if you don't want to check it out, click on those timestamps. You can jump right ahead and dive right on into the review. So I do want to mention, if you like this video, by all means, please give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel if you haven't already. And if you do subscribe, ding that bell. It'll not only let you know when the Dispatch streams live on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday evenings at 7 p.m. Central Time. It also lets you know when I upload other videos, such as tomorrow's first look at the Witchlight Carnival dice set and miscellany set for Dungeons & Dragons, as well as the Dungeon Master Screen Dungeon Kit. We're going to take a peek at these, keeping in mind they will not be live. I only do live streams Monday, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays. But also keep in mind that we are still in the midst of the Gaming Gang October Spooktacular 2021. I know that just rolls off the tongue, don't it? No. So we still have a few days. We are in the home stretch. So that also means every day there's a new tabletop gaming related video over on thegaminggang.com. Of course, that also means right here on the Gaming Gang YouTube channel. Could be a first look, might be a review, such as today's video is, or I should say tonight's video is. Or if it's Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday, it was this show. So you've had brand new videos each and every day of October to this point. And I'm like, holy cow, I've pulled it off through the 27th at least. Whew. Wow. Also, at 9 p.m. Central each and every evening throughout October, I'm hosting spooky old-time radio shows that are destined to put a chill down your spine. And I've got some goodies to wrap up this year's Spooktacular with as well. Don't miss out. A lot of people out there have been checking out the old-time radio shows, and they've been digging them. And I talk about this quite a bit. If you are a dungeon master or a keeper or a game master, whatever you want to call yourself, you can call yourself a referee. If you're running role-playing games, you really owe it to your players to listen to some old-time radio shows because it's perfect to learn how to paint a picture with words. They are fantastic. So always recommend that as well. But if you are in the mood for some spooky Halloween fun, be sure to be visiting thegaminggang.com. Of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, you should visit thegaminggang.com for the latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Lastly, this is a live stream, so it means there's chat available. It's not on screen. It's one of the ways that I keep some of the more unusual commenters at bay. But if you want to say howdy, or maybe you got a question, a comment, by all means, please chime in, and I will do my best to respond. So Boris is with us. Leonardo MML is here. Flaming Huron, one of our 2 chat moderators, is with us. I know our second chat moderator will not be with us. And I heard some bad news as well. We'll talk about that in a sec. JPF Falconer Honor is with us. It's been a while since we saw JPF. He must have been on vacation. Zach McKinney is here. Disavowed 92 is here as well. Andrew Milicevic. Andrew M is with us. So we got a chat off and running already. Very good. Very cool. So I heard some bad news today. I saw this over on Twitter. A friend of the show, the Madman. Yes, the Motor City Madman. So I refer to him. He is one of our chat moderators, one of our 2. And I understand his 104-year-old grandmother passed away today. Or at least he shared that information today. So my sincerest condolences to the Madman and his family. I know the Madman's real name. So I just, not revealing it here. I heard that news. That was not cool. I hate when I hear that kind of stuff. It's the worst. And you never know what to say. Or at least I never know what to say. Kevin R. Smith has joined us in chat. That's certainly not something you normally would say, talking about somebody losing a loved one. But I did want to, share my condolences because the Madman's a friend of the show. He's a friend of the Gaming Gang. He's part of the gang. If you hang out and you're in chat with us and you take part, even if you're lurking, like a couple of people we know, you're part of the gang. And I'm a softie. What can I tell you? So Flaming Heron says, yeah, not good news. Hopefully he's doing well. I agree. Yeah, I really do hope the Madman is doing well because I understand he was very, very close with his grandmother, just from comments he had made in chat over the years on the show. So sorry to hear that. All right. So let's move on to some brighter news here. Let's jump on in because arriving early next year from designer Andy Lubershane comes a new edition of Monstrology. Here's the scoop. Monstrology is a fully cooperative card game, which you can also play competitively between 2 teams, a la charades, suitable for gamers of all ages. You can play Monstrology with 2 to 8 people. Each round takes about 5 minutes, with a recommendation of at least 2 rounds per player. The game requires both sides of your brain to work together. Damn, I hate that. That ain't going to happen for me. As you'll have to blend your imagination and deduction skills in order to succeed. At the core of the game are 84 illustrated imaginary monster cards. Now, the monster cards aren't imaginary, though. They are imaginary monsters. Just so you know, you're not pretending that there's cards. depicting some of the most beautiful, strange, unique monsters you have ever encountered. The game also includes 12 taxonomy boards that will allow you to categorize and identify these delightful, unsettling creatures. Not sure how something can be delightful and unsettling. Here's a simplified explanation of the game. One player, the subject of a monstrological investigation, randomly and secretly selects an imaginary monster from the deck of monster cards. 2, the subject fills out a taxonomy board in order to give the other players, the investigators, a sense of his or her monster. Subject cannot communicate with the other players in any other way. No facial expressions or hand gestures. 3, the subject places his or her monster in a lineup with other imaginary monsters, more cards. And then 4, the investigators attempt to deduce which monster belongs to the subject. Lively discussion ensues as the investigators attempt to convince each other that this monster looks like he'd prefer flies to gerbils. Or, are you kidding? That monster would be terrible at babysitting. 5, the more investigators who select the correct monster, the more points the team scores. Monstrology is for 2 to 8 players, ages 8 and up, plays in around 20 minutes or more. Once again, it's recommended a couple of 5-minute rounds per player. So if you're playing with 8 players, that's quite a long gameplay recommendation. It's going to carry an MSRP of $24.95 when it returns to print in early 2022. So here's a strange thing. So I had heard on one website, one distributor is claiming that this actually arrives in stores next week. And then I saw elsewhere that it is probably March of next year. So it's like, So I'm going to take a guess it's March of next year, especially seeing that we've got all these supply chain issues going on at the moment. Zach McKinney says this art looks very interesting. That's actually the reason why I wanted to share this news piece, because I found the artwork pretty wild as well. If you notice the web address down at the bottom of the slide, you can visit that. And I believe the Monstrologist is an artist who creates all these different monsters and decided to use the artwork for a game. Speaking of second editions, here's the dope on the second edition of Saloon Tycoon from Ryder Games. Yeehaw! Welcome to the Old West. You're the new and lucky owner of a saloon lot smack dab in the middle of town. But he ain't the only one. Outwit your opponents to become the most popular saloon order in town by adding new features for your customers and attracting influential citizens to visit your saloon. But be careful. Don't let your saloon become a place where outlaws loiter. Players are saloon owners in an Old West gold rush town. They've purchased lots on the 4 corners of the main crossroads and need to expand their small establishments into thriving businesses. Their goal is to create massive centers for commerce and entertainment in the wilds of the West. To boost their success, they'll need to attract the wealthy and famous citizens of the town while keeping away the less savory characters. This is a building and tile placement game where the purpose of the game is to build the best saloon. The game is played by each player taking a board and then taking turns going clockwise from the first player, earning gold, taking an action, building, and collecting bonuses. The player with the most reputation points at the end of the game wins. The second edition of Saloon Tycoon brings refined mechanics and scoring. Saloon Tycoon also features expanded component counts to build even bigger saloons, a bigger scoreboard, and improved gameplay and scoring. The game is for 2 to 4 players, ages 10 and up, plays in 20 to 40 minutes, and does carry an MSRP of $59.99. I have always been interested in Saloon Tycoon, but I got to be honest, I have never reviewed a Ryder game. Ever. I don't even think I've ever played a Ryder game. Weird. I do believe this is available now. I think you can order it from Ryder Games. I think they've got it available. I did not hear anything as far as, oh, this is coming in November or anything like that. So I think this second edition of Saloon Tycoon is available. So Omanal is with us. Keldon has shown up. Zorak Zoran, who we haven't seen Double Z1 in a while, has joined us as well. Did I miss anybody? I don't think so. I think I've got everybody who's just popped into chat with us. So I think it was Keldon said that I obviously grew up as a cowboy. I did live out in Arizona for 10 years. But I do have to point out that little piece that I was sharing, that is kind of written like that. Like your is Y-E-R throughout. It's like, you're the owner of a saloon. You're trying to build a great saloon. So I figured I'd just go run with it, have some fun. But this does look very nice. I like the art style too. The art style looks pretty cool. And I believe that we were just looking at, I think that's a scoring board. I think that has been revamped as well. One thing I will point out that I did notice is, I guess the original Saloon Tycoon has some expansions out. And I guess the fine folks over at Ryder Games are not sure if those expansions will work with the second edition yet. So I don't know. So Double Z1 says it's 2:16 where they're at. Yeah, so it's either a very late night or a very early morning for Double Z1. Let's move right on to some role-playing game news, because if you have ever had an interest in checking out the 4th edition of Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay from my friends over at Cubicle 7 Entertainment, now is the time to take advantage of a fantastic humble bundle. Here's the skinny. Explore the world of Warhammer. Gather your party and delve into the grim and perilous world of Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay with this bundle of RPG ebooks from Cubicle 7. Get essential tomes like the core rulebook and bestiary. Dive deeper into the setting with source books, and strike out on quests across the old world with a host of adventures. Plus, your purchase helps support Water Aid America. Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay takes you back to the old world. Get the gang together, create your heroes or anti-heroes, and set off to make your way through the vile corruption, scheming plotters, and terrifying creatures intent on destruction. Prepare yourself for the struggle of the gutter, to fight for your survival and to face corruption on all sides. Damn you, corruption! Prepare yourself for danger, as lethal threats are everywhere and you can't face them alone. And most of all, prepare yourself for the grim and perilous adventure of Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay. The 4th edition Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay rulebook contains everything you need for grim and perilous role-playing adventures in the old world, drawing inspiration from the legendary early publication of the Grimdark RPG. Wifrip brings innovative twists to build on the beloved classic. So you can jump on board this for as little as $1. So the $1 is going to get you the fantabulous starter set, which I reviewed and gave highest marks to. Of course, this starter set you're not getting the dice and stuff. It's a PDF. So you get that. I think you get one of the Ubers-like adventures, as well as I think you get Buildings of the Reichland for $1. Of course, the adventure and the supplement, who cares? I mean, they're good, don't get me wrong. But you get the starter set for $1. You can go all in for $30. It's a $30 donation. You're going to get 50 PDFs, including, and you're seeing some images of covers from these books as well, a huge run of the 2nd edition material for Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay. You also get some 4E adventures. You get the first chapter of the Enemy Within Director's Cut and a lot more for $30. Like I said, you can go all in, $30, get all 50 PDFs. So you're talking less than $1 a PDF. You'll get the core rule book as well. You'll get all the Ubersreich Adventures volumes 1 and 2. So I mean, it's packed. And I really do dig Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay. I like it a lot. I like the sense of humor it's got. That it's deadly serious, but I like the fact that the player characters aren't, these demigods. They're just sort of regular Janes and Joes out there. It always reminds me of Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Is how I always kind of picture the world of Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay. Oh, it's the king. How do you know he's the king? Right? So Kevin says the top tier includes first edition core rulebook 2. That's right. It does. I had the first edition. I remember picking it up at I believe, if I remember correctly, I think I got that at Gamers Paradise at the Harlem and Irving Plaza in Norridge, which if you walked across the street, you were in Chicago. So that's how close that suburb was. I think I remember that's where I got it. Anyway, keep in mind, you're able to pick up this bundle through November 11th. Don't miss out. So we're talking about bundles. Let's talk about another one, because there is a money-saving, fresh bundle of holding that arrived yesterday. It features Shotguns and Sorcery from Full Moon Enterprises. And here's what I know. Adventurer! This all-new Shotguns and Sorcery bundle presents the fantasy noir horror tabletop role-playing game, Shotguns and Sorcery, by novelist and game designer Matt Forbeck. In his 30-plus year career, Matt has written more than 30 novels and dozens of role-playing games and supplements, and he co-designed the forthcoming Marvel Multiverse role-playing game. That is going to be interesting. Interesting. Shotguns and Sorcery takes place in Dragon City, a sprawling mountain city ruled by a monstrous dragon emperor who protects the people from ravenous hordes of zombies outside its walls. Matt showed off the Dragon City setting in a 2012 trilogy of novels funded by his ambitious 12 for 12 quartet of Kickstarter campaigns. Along with all the Dragon City fiction to date, this bargain price offer brings you PDFs of the 2018 Shotguns and Sorcery role-playing game and most of its support line. For just $17.95, you get all of these DRM-free PDFs worth a total of $75, including the complete full-color 276-page Shotguns and Sorcery, the role-playing game core rulebook, plus its player's guide and encounter cards, the adversary book, Monsters and Mean Streets, and the introductory adventure, Miners and Mobsters, and the Shotguns and Sorcery Omnibus that collects all of Matt's Dragon City fiction. The Omnibus is also available in this offer in Kindle and EPUB formats. There's only one tier for this bundle because I guess, well, there's really not enough out there for the game for there to be a second tier, I guess. So these savings run through November 16th, and 10% of your payment, after gateway fees, of course, will be donated to Direct Relief. Yes, another bundle that is going to be benefiting Direct Relief. So I know Direct Relief is doing some, they're really involved in COVID pandemic related things as well right now. So Kevin says, Matt Forbeck also designed the Decipher Lord of the Rings game. Got to see one of his Gen Con events, not a panel, just him. One of the couple times he went to Gen Con back in the day. Disavowed92 says, Gamers Paradise. I used to manage a Gamers Paradise. pretty wild because I went to high school with somebody who ended up managing a gamer's paradise. And we never thought that this guy was a gamer. We thought he was, because he had like long black hair. He looked like he was a guitarist in a metal band. And it was funny. We walked into Gamer's Paradise one time. Off the top of my head, I can't remember his name. But we saw him there. We're like, hey, you work here? He goes, yeah, I'm the manager. It just started blah, blah, blah. And we're like, oh, okay. And then he started asking us what kind of games we played. And it turned out he was a big gamer. It was pretty wild. That was over, like I said, at good old Harlem and Irving Plaza. So something else I should point out, and we will talk about this, I'll share a news piece on Monday about this, is that there's actually a Kickstarter going on right now for a Shotguns and Sorcery 5e source book. And we will dive into that on Monday's show. We'll do a news piece about that. So to take a peek, this looks like a pretty interesting setting as well. It's kind of fantasy. It's, you know what it reminds me of? I don't know why. Maybe it's just because of the title. Every time I see things about Shotguns and Sorcery, I think of Cadillacs and Dinosaurs, the comic book. Well, and then that became a role-playing game too, but I think it only got a core book way back in the day. For some reason, every time I see this, I think Cadillacs and Dinosaurs, or was it Dinosaurs and Cadillacs? I think it was Cadillacs and Dinosaurs is what it was. Okay, let's move on to our last news piece because a new Traveler campaign has arrived from Mongoose Publishing. Here's a wee bit, and when I say wee bit, I mean wee bit, about Secret of the Ancients. I should say secrets, plural. A complete campaign of truly epic proportions. Secrets of the Ancients delves into the dark past of the charted space universe and the legacy of a race of incredibly advanced and powerful aliens. Over the course of this campaign, the travelers will see sights no human has ever dreamed of, meddle with powers beyond understanding, clash with secret factions within the Imperium, and ultimately help shape the destiny of all charted space. No pressure, anybody, no pressure. Secrets of the Ancients will start your travelers off within the familiar Spinward Marshes, but quickly escalates to take them into times, places, and dimensions they barely dreamed of. This is Traveler at its very best, according to Mongoose Publishing. The 256-page hardcover is available right now for pre-order from Mongoose. It's approximately $50.99. Exchange rate, right? Because Mongoose is over in the UK. You can get the PDF right now, though, for $29.99. I like Traveler. I think it's really overpriced, but I do like it. Mongoose has gotten better at the amount of gameable content that they include in their releases. I thought their starter set, even though I think it's like a $70 box, was excellent. I thought that was really, really well done. And you got the same information from the starter set as you did with the core rule book. So it wasn't like shaved down or anything like that. You got the whole full game dice. Of course, it's just 6-sided dice, but you know, and an adventure. Really do like it. I do like Traveler. I do definitely dig Traveler. My problem is I don't have anybody in the gang who wants to play Traveler. Elliot, my best friend, he was okay with it, but my nephew and at the time his girlfriend, I tried running an adventure. Oh, even with Elliot's son, and they're kind of like, they want the fantasy. They want either the fantasy or Uncle Jeff doing his Call Cthulhu horror. This is what they want. Okay, speaking of DriveThruRPG, don't forget, The Gaming Gang, thus the Dispatch, is affiliated with the One Bookshelf sites. So if you are going to go visit, say, DriveThruRPG, don't forget, visit thegaminggang.com first, click on one of our banner ads, and that way, if you do make a purchase, I get a small portion of that sale. And all those nickels, dimes, and quarters really do help keep thegaminggang.com around. Also, I want to point out, you still are in the midst of the Halloween sale. So you get, I think it's up to like 30% off. And most of the sale items, and there's thousands of them, is 30% off. But some are a little bit less. Some are a little less. But you also have the freebies. So, and we've talked about this kind of on every show. I think this is going to go maybe into November. I think we still have more days ahead of this. I don't think it's going to just end on Halloween. But if you click on the Halloween banner when you land on DriveThruRPG, they'll first take you to a page with the 6 freebies of the day, and they change every day. So don't miss out. There has been some really cool, really popular, very well-known releases that have been free. So don't miss out because it'll change every single day. If you go over to Dungeon Masters Guild, there's 2 freebies. They sometimes overlap with what's over on DriveThruRPG. And if you go to Storyteller's Vault, they've got the same 6 items for about a week and a half when this kicked off. So don't forget, don't miss out because there's goodies every single day. And the other thing, somebody had emailed me and said, hey, Jeff, I went over to DriveThruRPG and I didn't see any Halloween freebies. So if you get there and their banner is showing like the new like Pathfinder community refresher page, hit F5. It's usually F5 on just about every browser. And if you hit F5, it'll just make sure you recycle through, you reload until you get that Halloween banner. That's what you need to click on. So I noticed that myself. All right, let's see what else we've got here. So Flaming Heron says, I know one person besides themselves who likes Traveler. Omanal says they never played Traveler. They have no opinion. Omanal is actually one of our, I should say, he is our newest contributor to the Gaming Gang. You know what? I'll shoot you some Traveler stuff if you're interested in doing reviews of it. So Flaming Heron says the freebies have been excellent for the past few days. Yeah, they really have been. And Flaming Heron says they just opened DriveThruRPG and they updated their layout. Now I know DriveThruRPG has been working on a completely new look to their website. And they had a little link if you wanted to take a peek at it. Maybe it's finally online. Maybe they finally decided, okay, we're rolling out the new look. I don't know. I was on this morning and it looked the same. All right. So that's it for the news tonight. Let me grab a quick sip here. And then we're going to dive into the review. Yes, that's right. So tonight, I am going to share my review as well as a bit of a page through for Call of Cthulhu. I almost started off just saying Berlin. Call of Cthulhu. Berlin, the Wicked City from Chaosium Inc. So it's written by David Larkins with assists from Mike Mason and Lynn Hardy. I apologize. I am going to completely botch a lot of names here. I apologize right up front. I say it all the time. I sort of utilize English as if it were a second language. Artwork is provided by Loic Musi, Sam Beck, Christina Carroll, Caleb Cleveland, Emmanuel DeCianti, Trevor Henderson, Chris Huth, Pat Leboyko, Michelle Lockamy, Magdalena by Zizek, Odessa Sawyer, Dimitar Stoyanov, Matt Ryan, and Vandal J. Arden. Once again, yes, I apologize. I apologize for butchering all your names. The 272-page hardcover does carry an MSRP of $44.99. You can currently grab the PDF over at DriveThruRPG. Normally, it's $19.99. It is part of that Halloween sale, so it's actually available for right now for $13.99. And the limited edition Leatherette book carries an MSRP of $94.99. This about 92 says, Jeff just likes to drain my spending cash. Yep, that's what I do. That's what I do. Zach McKinney says, probably the most interesting and mature rated Call of Cthulhu source book. Zach's also pointing, there's Boris and Zach are both pointing out the content warnings, which I am going to give you as well when we jump on in. So let's swing on over to the other camera. And there was a reason why I was talking about that Leatherette edition, because that's the one I got. Yes, I know. I got the Leatherette edition of Berlin, the Wicked City from the fine folks over at Cubicle, Chaosium Inc. Something just popped up on my screen with Cubicle 7, and I was like, plus Pinky's down here. You may have heard her starting her goofiness. You think we never fed her around here or something? She likes to yell at the water, and she likes to yell at the box. Don't know. Anyway, let's mention a few things here. The fine folks over at Chaosium Inc., let's get that out there, not the other company I mentioned, were kind enough to provide me with this review copy of Berlin, the Wicked City for Call of Cthulhu. But neither I nor anyone else affiliated with the gaming gang has received any other sort of compensation for me to share my thoughts about this book with you. And these days, it's very, very important for you to know that. Something else. This is, as already being mentioned in chat, this is the most mature source book that I have run across in my 40 years of running Call of Cthulhu. This may not necessarily be for everyone because of a lot of the subject matter that's in here, as well as the adventures themselves. So there's some discussion of when does this take place? Yes, it is actually during the Weimar Republic. In fact, the subtitle here is Unveiling the Mythos in Weimar Berlin. And there are 3 adventures within here. They form a loose campaign. I got to be honest, I don't think I would utilize the adventures in a campaign. At least not skip from one to the next to the next. I wouldn't go point to point through the 3 of them. I'm going to stay up here. So I'm going to stay picture in picture in the upper left. That means I am also going to be cutting off the upper left portion of this book. We're not going to look at each and every page. I'm not going to take a huge deep dive into this book either, because I want to try to avoid spoilers, which is the final thing I'm going to mention, is that there are adventures within. In fact, off the top of my head, I want to say about 170 pages of the 272 pages are devoted to 3 adventures. So I don't want to ruin anybody's enjoyment if they're hoping their keeper is going to run Berlin, the Wicked City, as well as I don't want to ruin the enjoyment of keepers out there when they get to read through stuff and go, ooh, wow. Ooh, oh yeah, okay. All right. So Zach points out has a cool Stephen King call out in the book. All right, let's jump in. So yes, we had a mature content warning right when we open up the book here. Once again, nice production quality. We've got our bookmark as well. We're going to jump on in here. We've got an introduction. So essentially during the period that's pretty much covered in this book, which is essentially just after the Great War, to like 1932, just before Adolf Hitler becomes chancellor. It basically, Berlin was fueled by sex, drugs, and cabarets. It's essentially what was going on, and it was a pretty wide open city in some respects. And you know what? I think the Germans have kind of been like that for some times. Double Z1's going to call it a night. Thank you very much, Double Z, for popping in and joining us once again. So Kevin R. Smith points out the musical Cabaret is also set in Weimar, Berlin, just for a point of reference. Yes, come to the cabaret, old chum. Something. It's been so long since my mom would play that soundtrack all the time. Boris points out Berlin was the heroin capital of Europe. So we're going to break this now. We're going to have kind of a similar breakdown like we saw in Harlem Unbound 2nd edition the other night. So first off, we get a discussion about the city itself and characters and investigators in the city, either if you are Berliners or if you are from outside of Berlin or outside of Germany. So there's some information about bringing existing characters in to this setting, as well as creating kind of 3 archetypes that can be utilized with experience packages as well. So we've got the street fighter. Essentially, you would think of them as like a brown shirt, but you have to remember there were umpteen different political groups, and almost all of them had their own muscle that was out there cracking heads. So we've got that. We've got the underclass experience package, which is essentially not the most, not the poorest of the poor, but certainly the less privileged. And then we have the former core student, which is essentially a club member, because one aspect of German life during this period was that everybody belonged, I should say, to some sort of club, organization, what have you. So then we get into a little bit more detail about these different character experience packages as well. We get a brief overview of the city, different areas of the city also. The Tier Garden, which in essence is the animal garden, was where it was basically a hunting preserve earlier on. So one thing that I thought was kind of funny is there's a little sidebar and it's talking about how to pronounce German words, and it takes itself very seriously. It's sort of like, okay, all right, I gotcha. Okay. All right. Stop yelling at me. So essentially the first chapter is just giving you an idea of the city of Berlin, which at this point in time is actually 4 times larger than Paris, because it wasn't long before this period, this era, that the city of Berlin actually incorporated all these smaller suburbs and little towns and things like that were on the outskirts into the city itself. So Kevin asks, does it go into detail on how to pronounce umlaut vowels? No. So Zach asks, is that the inflation chart? No. This is if you wanted to randomly generate if your investigator is going to be from Berlin, it's a random table for you to roll, and it'll give you a borough. Because what they do is they actually break down the city into 20 boroughs and kind of give you an overall feel for each of those areas. Because the city is so large, it's also not like a street by street. Yes, Zach's like, yeah, that's later then. Yes, it is. We may not even stumble across it because I am skipping pages as we go through. And I know some people are like, how come, you don't just show us all the pages, especially when a book's been out for a while? I'll repeat myself again. Publishers don't like that. They don't like that at all. Because it's like, amazingly enough, I actually had a video that was, it wasn't even exactly the clearest video that people were using to get pages for one of the D&D releases. I think that was like a year and a half or 2 years ago, because I was flipping through every page, and it was like, who would pirate a book from a video? It's pathetic, but they do it. All right. So one of the aspects of this book that some people are going to have a problem with is the amount of detail and gaming mechanics actually that are devoted to drug use, prostitution, sex. These are not things that we typically discuss at the game table, or we hand wave it very, a lot of times we fade to black as a keeper or game master when we get to some sticky subjects. Well, this book does dive on in. Another aspect of this that it really does stand out from any other Call of Cthulhu source book is they completely recognize the, well, I guess we would say the queer aspects of the city as well, and how on one hand, even back in the 1920s, Berlin was still rather conservative. But then on the other hand, it was, like I said, it was almost like a free city where almost anything went. And people today would be very, very surprised how open sexually and gender wise that the city was at that point in time. So then we start getting into places of interest throughout. There we go. Here's a section about prostitution. Here we go. LGBTQI investigators. So Kellen asks, what year is it? It's the 20s. So it's essentially, I would say it's about 1919 to 1932. There's a little overlap, I think, as well. So once again, discussion of prostitution and different kinds of prostitutes. Some people might be very uncomfortable by that. There's a lot of cool photography throughout. There's very interesting artwork as well. Funny thing is, this is like the $95 leatherette edition, and I was very, very pleasantly surprised that Chaosium sent this along. But as weird as this may sound, I wish I got the standard edition, because I really, really dig the cover artwork on the book. It's some of my favorite Call of Cthulhu cover art out of anything I have ever seen. And it's not real scary or anything like it. It just embodies what this book is so nicely. 245 Trioxin has jumped on in to chat. Good to see you. Okay, so then chapter 3 is just going to be discussing famous people in Berlin. Einstein still is a Berliner at this point in time. Fritz Lang. One aspect I thought was very cool in here, and one of the adventures is actually devoted to it, is the really, really, gosh, what's the word that I want to use? Exploding film community in Germany and in Berlin. Joseph Goebbels is also one of the uh, personalities that is in this section as well. I'm sure some people will take some offense to that, but and you know, I can obviously see that for most people, you're not necessarily going to want to introduce as NPCs, even very minor NPCs, uh, real figures in the Nazi party. And of course, you know, your investigators are probably going to be like, oh, okay, let's kill him. It's like, yeah, okay. But the thing is, if say they ran into Joseph Goebbels and they kill him, you know, there's somebody else who would have taken his place, who would have stepped right in, been the same. So Zach says, let's cool people and Goebbels. Yeah, I know. I thought it was kind of weird. So then we get into Mythos Berlin, which, as far as setting books, I think 1920s Berlin is a perfect locale for the mythos. And there's certain cities that just seem to really stand out, that that would work really, really well as, you know, centers for campaigns. New York, obviously enough, London, Chicago, San Francisco, Shanghai is another one. I think really, really stands out as places that you could easily, as a keeper, sink your teeth into to run a long campaign from, and Berlin is as well. So we get into a discussion of the different cults, and then we jump right on into the adventures. These are the most mature adventures I have encountered for Call of Cthulhu. I'm going to point that out right away. They're the three adventures are completely different. They have completely different vibes, but they are also going to deal in some subjects that people may not be comfortable with at their game table. You know the players at your game table far better than I ever could guess. So keep that in mind. But the adventures are pretty damn cool. So one aspect I think is pretty interesting as well is that the stakes for each of the adventures is quite a bit different. The second adventure, I mean, you could be looking at tens of thousands of people ending up being killed or taking their own lives. And the third adventure is much smaller in scale, but also pretty horrific. So there's some good gross out in this first adventure as well, more so than in the second and third adventures. So another aspect I think is pretty cool, especially when we're looking at the second adventure, which we're going to dive into in just a second, is that the investigators have to kind of make a deal with a devil. Not, I don't mean like literally a devil, but they have to make a deal with a devil to stop another devil. So I definitely enjoy adventures that require, you know, difficult moral decisions from the investigators. I really do dig that as well. Something in the first adventure that's kind of interesting is there is an exiled Russian princess that the characters end up befriending, and she becomes a very important NPC for this adventure. And that's one aspect of the city of Berlin that I personally really didn't know about. And that was that during the interwar years, that there were a lot of white Russians living in Germany, loads and loads of them. So it was not unusual that that you had people speaking Russian on the streets as opposed to speaking German. Of course, this is also a time where people of Germany and Berlin especially are fascinated by American culture, and they can't get away, can't get enough of it. And Zach points out they think the first of the three is the darkest. I think the second of the three is probably the more, I would say the second adventure is the more problematic at the table adventure. Dances of vice, horror, and ecstasy. And once again, we've already talked about that the source book portion of Berlin, the Wicked City really gets into prostitution and sex, taboos and, kinks and things like that. And of course, the, various different, queer aspects, things like that. So does this adventure. So it's something that really needs to be looked at if you're a keeper who's going to run this. Once again, you really need to know your players at the table, and this is not a situation where it's like, oh well, you got your X card. If something's going on, play an X card. That's not how I see this. But like I said, the stakes are really high in this adventure as well. And this adventure takes place kind of at the height of the German Renaissance. When we were taking a look at Harlem Unbound second edition the other night, that takes place during the Harlem Renaissance. And this is along those same lines. In the interwar years, in the mid-20s, the German people were like, they were riding high. They thought, hey, you know what? Happy days are here again for them, right? That was not the case. There was a lot of financial instability below the surface that the average German just didn't see or know about. And all that is kind of bubbling up under the surface of this adventure as well. Something I should point out is that the topic of pain as a sexual release is a topic that is in one of the adventures here. So, it's one of these things where there's a reason why there's a content warning on this. Personally, I think this is awesome. I, of course, probably wouldn't run the adventures as written, but I think these are fantastic adventures, and they are really dark, as Keldon's pointing out. Dark AF. Yes, they are. And they are also going to be very easily turning into total party kills. That's another reason why I don't really think I could connect the three adventures together as a campaign. For one, because of the fact that it's very possible that at the conclusion or before in any of these adventures that the entire party is going to get wiped. Also, there's a good amount of time that's passing between the adventures, and the ties together are not real strong. They aren't strong at all. Aleister Crowley makes an appearance in this third adventure. As I mentioned before, Shrek film focuses on the Berlin and German film industry. And this is where we start to see the National Socialists are starting to gain strength, gain power. One thing that I also have to point out, and this is something I had mentioned before, Flaming Urine says, total party kill, color me interested. Now see, I completely lost my train of thought. Yep, that happens. That does happen. Flaming Heron says, honestly, they're a terrible player. They always look for a way to kill their character. It was funny. We had Elliot's nephew, Paul, was always, his characters were always getting killed. Never failed. He went through character after character after character. Thankfully, Elliot and my friend Ed, their characters had some longevity. They actually stuck around for a bit. Anyway, I was going to say, I know what I was just about to say. So one aspect of this setting, not necessarily in the adventures, but with this setting as well, we do have the Nazi Party starting to gain votes. They're starting to gain traction as well. You're going to see 1933, Hitler is going to be named chancellor, and that underbelly exists. Now, it's not something that's really focused on really heavily in this book, but something that I would definitely point out is that, and this is the same reason, and I mentioned this the other night, that the first edition of Achtung Cthulhu kind of left me cold, was do not allow the mythos to power the evils of the Nazi Party. Don't do it. And unfortunately, in Achtung Cthulhu, that sort of is in the mix, where it's sort of, it's not completely letting those SOBs off the hook, but there's too much reliance on, it's the mythos behind the scenes. It's the, the shadowy forces. No, that was not it. And don't pawn it off like that. So Zach says the shadow hangs over this book. Yes. That's a nice way of putting it. That it's always there. And as you would move further along in these adventures, of course, obviously enough, the first adventure, no, because the National Socialists really don't exist at that point. Or they do exist at that point. They just have absolutely no power. Anyway, we get some inspirational media, so some movies and TV. And then, of course, we get the always cool handouts as well. Kind of give you a quick peek through here. And then there is a map of Berlin that gives us our location index. Now, this is in the book as well. So very cool. I like that quite a lot. And it is color coded too. So we've got points of interest, cemeteries, churches and hospitals, clubs, cafes, government buildings, and then hotels and stations. And that is Berlin, the Wicked City, unveiling the mythos in Weimar, Berlin from Chaosium Inc. Let me swing on over to the other camera. I am going to wrap this up and give you a review score. So this is kind of a tough one for some people, not necessarily me, because mature content doesn't bother me. I need to point it out that it's there, but I guess, I don't know, maybe I'm just jaded or something. I don't sit there and go, oh, geez. Like I said, there are some gross out moments in this. There are themes of sexuality and drug use. I mean, there's like mechanics on drug use in this. So Some people might be freaked out about it. Omanel says it's because I live in Chicago. Well, I don't live in Chicago anymore. I am in the suburbs. But yes, I spent 30 years in the city. So yeah. Fleming here says play with older gamers. It's never an issue. I think with older gamers, it could be an issue, especially if you don't know people. I'll tell you right off the bat, I would not run any of the 3 adventures in this book with people I didn't know. It wouldn't be because, from time to time, I run stuff for people I've never run stuff before. Doesn't happen a lot, but it's usually somebody I know is like, oh, hey, did you know Jeff? He does all this game stuff, blah, blah, blah. So I certainly would not dive into this book for that. Oh, yeah, you're going to love this. Be like, hold on to your hats, everybody. You're going to think I'm a twisted bastard here. So, Fleming Heron says they steer clear of extreme sexual content. I do too. I'm not. There's almost never any. There may be mention of things, but it's always like well, when we're talking about sexuality and sex and things like that, I always keep it like PG. It doesn't go any more than that. Now, of course, when we're talking like the Gru and the horror, it might be NC-17, I don't know. Anyway, let's get back to the book. I think this is a fantastic book. I really do. As I pointed out when we were kind of paging through, I feel that this is a setting that really stands out as something where you could be like, man, I could certainly tell some great mythos stories and other tales as well. We don't always have to have the mythos involved in a Call of Cthulhu adventure. I think this stands out as a setting to utilize. And as strange as this sounds, that shadow, as Zach had pointed out, of fascism rising in the background really does bring some interesting aspects to Berlin as well. I think the 3 adventures are really well done. Also very mature. So can't point that out enough. All in all, this is another one of these books that are the reason why I run Call of Cthulhu. When I did my review for Harlem Unbound 2nd edition, I mentioned that as well and said, hey, that this is the reason why I love the game. Because not only is there some awesome gameable material in here, but I also learn things along the way. And it never fails when you're looking through, be it a great Call of Cthulhu adventure book or source book with adventures, your mind's always, as a keeper, it's always flashing. Oh man, I could see. Oh yes. Oh, I could. You know what? I bet you if I did. I think everybody does that with all their games that they run, but with the best source books and adventure books, all those creative juices just really start rocking and rolling. And that is certainly the case with Berlin, the Wicked City. I can see why this won so many awards, including the Ennies. If you tend to run Call of Cthulhu for teenagers and things like that, I would say as a keeper, maybe pick it up to enjoy the content and to spark your imagination. But I think the adventures probably would not be a good fit. But for, I would say, a vast majority of people out there running Call of Cthulhu, Berlin, the Wicked City is another essential book you need to own. And you don't even have to be running Call of Cthulhu. You could be running Tiny Cthulhu or Cthulhu Dark. Somebody told me I should review Cthulhu Dark. I've heard of it. I don't know who makes it. I'll have to take a peek. So maybe you're running the Cthulhu hack. Took me a second. Why did it take me so long to think of that? It's Wednesday. What can I tell you? It's my Friday, right? Let's see. Let's wrap up. Take a look real quick. So there's some discussion of handling history, right? Yeah, exactly. And we talked about this when we were taking a peek at Harlem Unbound. If you want to make things they don't have to be completely historically accurate because we're playing a game, for crying out loud. If you're playing witches who are going to be burned at the stake, we don't need to get into like a whole lot about what's going to happen, right? It's pretty obvious. But it's been handled so maturely in this book, and that's something I got to give a lot of credit to the folks over at Chaosium Inc., especially the new guard that is there. And I know some of the new guard is old guard, but just everything that has come out from Chaosium in the past, say, 4 years, for the most part, has been really, really well done. Some of the adventure books, but once again, that's kind of, everybody's got an opinion on those. Usually source books, it's either good or it's not. And Berlin, the Wicked City is excellent. On a scale of 0 to 10, it came so close to getting a 10. But I can't give it a 10 because I do think that the drug references and the sexuality within the book is going to turn some people off. And the second adventure, I'm not real sure how I would run it, even with my group who have known me for years and years and years. But I do give it a 9.5 out of 10. Oh, so close. Oh, so close. Definitely pick it up. Once again, the 272-page hardcover does carry an MSRP of $44.99. You can get the PDF over at DriveThruRPG for $13.99 right now during the Halloween sale. Normally it's $19.99. And of course, the leatherette edition that we were just taking a look at carries an MSRP of $94.99. Omanel asks, any bad Call of Cthulhu source books? No, and I agree with Zach. Not for 7th edition. The older guard, what was it? Secrets of Tibet? The edition that they did, I think it was for 6th, that they had revised it, and that was not very well done. It's not something we're going to harp on. There were just issues with old Chaosium. And I'm so glad. And if you see any of my interviews that I've done a couple of interviews with Rick Mintz over at Chaosium. I am so happy that the folks who were actually running and I can't remember the name of the company, but they were essentially handling RuneQuest. That's what they did. It was RuneQuest. They're the ones who came in and saved the day for Chaosium, because Chaosium was on their way out because they had screwed some pooches bad. Anyway, so I'm very glad to see Chaosium doing so well. And I know they've been doing well because I talked about it off the record at Gen Con. So very, very happy to see that, because it's a company that I always have a very soft spot for, because I've been running good old Call of Cthulhu since it came out in 1981. So I'm glad also to see that the vast majority of their releases are good or excellent. So that is it for tonight's show. Zach points out they've got 3 new books coming out. Well, one of them we know is going to be A Time to Harvest, because that is out in PDF and I have not seen it. I have to reach out to Michael O'Brien at Chaosium. Either I guess I'm going to reach out either to him or to Rick and mention that I've reviewed everything from their big package they'd sent. I only have one review left for any Call of Cthulhu stuff, and it is Gateways to Terror, which will be this weekend. So we haven't wrapped up our Call of Cthulhu week yet. Got one more. In fact, I think this will be out Friday. And it will be, of course, a standalone video because this is the last live stream of the week. All right, so let's see. So Zach says they got 3 new books coming out. Flaming Heron says, you always remember your most favorite systems to run or your favorite games you ever played. And unfortunately, I think I remember games I played far more than most people would because I almost never get an opportunity to play. I'm like the forever GM. I really am. Really am. And I have to say, we'll wrap up because once again, we're doing a bit longer than I like doing shows. I like my shows to be about an hour. A few minutes over is okay. But I gave Elliot just a hard time because he told me he was running some Dungeons and Dragons for his family, for his wife and his daughter, I think 2 of his daughters, and I believe one of his sons. I was like, and you don't invite me? I'm like, seriously? I'm like, I've been running games for you for how many decades, and you can't even invite me to play? I was like, man. Flaming Your Head says, yeah, it sucks to be an eternal GM. So Zach is saying, oh man, I was hoping you had Children of Fear. We do have a review for Children of Fear that Sammy did. That is not something that I got a copy of. I got the PDF. And Zach's relatively new, I think, to following the gaming gang. I don't review PDFs. Because I like to do videos now. I don't do written reviews. Almost never do written reviews anymore. And PDFs just make for a really boring video. So it's like, I don't want to sit there and just share like 30 pages, like I share like the news. So Sammy did the review on that, loved it, thought it was fantastic. But no, that is a book I do not have. I'll ask. I'll ask. I mean, I've got a pretty good relationship with the fine folks over at Chaosium Inc. So I would think. Anyway, so Omanal says, problem is everyone has control issues. We all want to be players, then want to do it better as GM. Not everybody. I know people who have absolutely no interest in being a game master, and that's fine. I don't have any issue with that. Because being a game master is not easy. And I love how we got all these videos, and they're all clickbait. And you see it all the time. And you see it for D&D all the time. It's like 5 ways to be a fantastic dungeon master. And it's some dipshit who's been playing D&D for 2 years, and they're gonna tell us, It's like, yeah, okay. It's not that easy. I mean, you can be excuse my French, you can be a shitty game master super easy. And I know there are people out there who play role-playing games in a way that I would never play. I'm not just here to roll dice and fight stuff wave after wave after wave. That does not appeal to me. Flaming Heron says, if it was that easy, everyone would do it. Well, if you look at YouTube, everyone does, and they're fabulous at it. They're fantastic. All right. So, don't forget, tomorrow I am going to unbox and take a first look at the, what is it? Witchlight Carnival? Yeah, the Witchlight Carnival. This is a dice set and miscellany set for Dungeons and Dragons from Wizards of the Coast. We're also going to take a look at the new Dungeon Master screen and Dungeon Kit. Yeah, it's Dungeon Kit. So that'll be unboxing video together tomorrow. So that'll be up late afternoon, I'm sure. So Omanal says, I know when I bomb. Yeah, you know what? I'm always super hard on myself with, role-playing adventures. And then it's always funny because then I'll have people go, oh my God, that was awesome. And then I'm thinking to myself, oh man, that was awful. How did they enjoy that? That was just god awful. I screwed up. I did that one NPC's voice for the other NPC. How did they not see that? And of course, it's like stupidest things. I'm beating myself up. Kevin says, developing your ability to BS because your players will always go in a direction you would never have predicted. Yeah, just roll with the punches. And that's something like, I'll give you a great example. Like Call of Cthulhu. We've talked about it. Call of Cthulhu is a railroady game. Horror games have to be that way. I know there's all these people out there. Oh no, yeah. Oh, we can get together. It's a collaborative horror game. I'll tell you one thing I can guarantee. Tain't scary, Dooley. No way. There's no way that a collaborative game is going to be like, oh my gosh, 20 years ago, I still can't get that game out of my head. That's kind of stuff. It's like 2 weeks later, you're like, did we play that game? So there is a railroadiness to horror role-playing games, and they have to be. Otherwise, you're not going to have the scares. But you also have to know when to let your players go off on a sidetrack someplace, go be tourists for a little bit, and then bring them back onto the main rail and not have them realize that. That's another trick. That's something else that comes with experience. So Flaming Huron says, you're always your own worst critic. Yes, that's most people. Yeah, normally that is the case. All right, that's it for this time out. Don't forget, 9 o'clock tonight, Central. So 35 minutes. I've got another spooky old-time radio show for you to enjoy. So, of course, that's over at thegaminggang.com. That will go live at 9 p.m. Central. But that's it for this time out. If you like this video, by all means, please give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel if you haven't already. And if you do subscribe, ding that bell. It'll not only let you know when the Dispatch streams live Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday evenings at 7 p.m. Central. Also let you know when I upload other videos, such as my upcoming review of Gateways to Terror for Call of Cthulhu. And of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all the latest in gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Those of you who hung out live, thank you very much. Always appreciate you keeping me company. I also know a lot of people out there don't have an opportunity to watch live. Maybe you're even watching on Memorex. Doesn't matter. Thank all of you for taking some time out of your busy lives to stop by and hang out with me and enjoy some gaming talk and peeks at some games. Everybody enjoy your Halloween. Hopefully everybody has a great Halloween. Hopefully the weather isn't awful. Here it's just going to be kind of cool. We've got rain the next 2 days, but looks like we won't have rain on Halloween for the kids. Come on. But I will see you next month. That's right. Monday will be November 1st. And of course, until I see you next time, here's hoping each and every one of you gets to enjoy plenty of great gaming with your gang. See you Monday. Oh, you're still here. Well, while you're kicking it, how about subscribing to the Gaming Gang channel? Or seeing the latest episode of the Gaming Gang Dispatch? Or finding out what YouTube recommends you check out here at my channel? And of course, don't forget, get your geek on at thegaminggang.com.